Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you made the time to be here today. I've attended lots of webinars and online meetings recently, and I find that even as my body settles down in front of the screen, that my mind and my heart are still arriving. So I'd like to start my piece today by doing what I usually do in my in-person workshops, by taking a few mindful breaths that can help us be more present and engage in this session a bit more fully. So I'd like to invite you to just put everything down and then to take a deep breath in and a nice long exhale out. Take a moment to feel the ground beneath your feet. If you're sitting, feel your body sitting. If you're standing, feel your body standing. And then taking a big inhale in and let something go as you breathe out. And we'll do that one more time. Deepest inhale today. Enjoy a nice long exhale. And noticing if anything has shifted for you. Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak for about 12 minutes, and I'll tell you a little about who I am, about the science behind why self-care is important, and I'm going to offer 4 tips for well-being, plus a little bonus tool at the end that has saved my sanity during this pandemic. So as Kareen mentioned, I am a researcher at the University of British Columbia. I'm studying factors that promote the emotional resilience of families, and I have been teaching workshops on emotional intelligence for 15 years. And I'm also a mother to a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. So you would think that parenting during a pandemic is my moment to shine. Well, I thought so too. That I would be that parent sailing through these stormy seas with grace and compassion, explaining fractions to my kids with great patience and wisdom. But it hasn't quite panned out that way yet. In reality, I wake up every day with the best of intentions to be kind and to be nurturing today. But there's been many days over this last few weeks that I end up snapping at my kids, getting really annoyed at my partner and crying in the bathroom. And sometimes it's not even lunchtime. So I'm sharing this because I think I'm a good example of how you can have so much knowledge about supporting children's emotional development in your head and learn so many strategies about positive parenting, but they don't always translate into action. That is because I don't always have access to that part of my brain that makes good decisions, where my better self lives, especially when I am stressed. And these are stressful times. Now, I wonder if this resonates with you, but I trust that it does. I trust that it does because neuroscience tells us that factors like stress, lack of sleep, exhaustion has a direct impact on our brain's higher functions like focusing, remembering, and regulating our thoughts and actions. And there are multiple psychological studies that have shown that as human beings, we have limited cognitive and emotional resources that, if depleted and not replenished, can really affect our ability to make good decisions. And so all this is to say that your well-being really matters, and your well-being plays an essential part in your capacity to care for others, and that this stuff is real. So, knowing all that, how are you doing? What's going on for you right now? I think it isn't acknowledged nearly enough how hard this is right now. Being a parent at this moment is exhausting and stressful. You have probably been holding yourself up, your kids up, and perhaps your partner and extended families up through the stress of living in a pandemic. It is hard to be isolated at home with your child and juggling the full-time jobs of parenting, teaching, working all in the same space and in the same time. And more globally, the ground has shifted beneath our feet. Our lives as we knew it has changed. And here is yet another turn we have to navigate as we support our families in moving forward towards a new normal, where still so much is uncertain and unknown. This is hard. So what can we do to care for ourselves? Well, there's the behavioral stuff that many of us already do for self-care, like doing yoga, meeting with friends, which is so super important, the baking, knitting, working out. All this is great, but they're not always accessible in the moment. I would like to focus on ways for caring out for ourselves that we can do in the moment that can help build inner resources that lead to sustainable well-being and resilience. So here we go, 4 tips. Number 1, give yourself space to feel. Whether we're conscious of it or not, we're always feeling something. Have you ever said, I'm fine, and then something small happens, like something spills or you step on a Lego brick, and then suddenly these big feelings are sweeping through you and you're dumping them out? If you're feeling uncomfortable emotions, like if you're feeling frustrated, angry, upset, that's going to come out one way or another. But if we can cultivate an awareness of how we are feeling and acknowledge these emotions, like I am angry, I feel worried, this is frustrating, then we can start to feel better and make better decisions. Beyond awareness of emotions, how we relate to how we feel is also really important here. Like if you feel mad and you feel bad for feeling mad, like you think, I shouldn't feel frustrated, I should be dealing with this better, this doesn't help you either. So cultivate a practice of being okay with how you feel. Right now I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling sad, disappointed, worried. What else have I heard from parents recently? Fragile, excited, impatient, anxious, and that's all okay. All these are legitimate ways to feel right now. And if it feels too intense, then we can say, this is anger, or this is what stress feels like. And that can help us to gain a little bit of distance. So what does this look like in practice? For me, this means that before I enter a room or before I transition on to the next activity with my kids, I check in with myself. I check in with how am I feeling right now? And then I give it a name. And then I think, am I ready for what's ahead of me? And if I'm not, then this is the time to take a few mindful breaths, to drink some water, to hide in the bathroom and watch some cat videos if you have time before moving forward. Number 2, practice self-compassion. Self-compassion is about relating to yourself in a warm, gentle, loving way instead of being self-critical. When things are tough, it's not uncommon for a lot of us to be hard on ourselves and think that we should be doing better. So notice when things are difficult, what you say to yourself. Can you offer yourself the kindness that you would show a good friend? Can you recognize that your struggles do not reflect a flaw within you, but are part of a common human experience where everybody struggles sometimes? One way I put this into practice is to literally talk to myself as I would my real best friend, who is also a mom. I would say, when I'm having a tough time, to myself, like, this is so hard right now. You're carrying a lot right now. I know you're worried for those kids. You are a great parent and you're doing the best you can under these circumstances. I wish we could all go on a 3-day retreat on self-compassion and learn and experience and practice self-compassion together instead of just a 3-minute spiel. But I'm mindful of the time, and I'll just leave it saying that this is such an important practice. And I'm going to send out links to great resources on self-compassion later on, either through the Dalai Lama Center or through my Twitter feed. So number 3, give yourself time to decompress and recover. If you have decided to send your child back to school this week, you may feel the pressure now to be more productive, to catch up on work, to finish writing that chapter or finish up that project. I'm going to advise that you try to resist putting more on yourself right away. It is a big transition for you too. And it can be scary to look to the future when you have spent so long being just focused on keeping the boat afloat in the present. So make time to decompress. And this can mean giving yourself some time where you don't have to perform or achieve or produce anything, and enjoy that. Lie on the couch, take a walk by yourself. Put aside a whole hour to eat a cinnamon bun and savor every bite. Making space to reflect on how you're feeling and doing something for yourself that feels good is important and legitimate work. This is being productive. And finally, 4, savor the good moments that come along. This tip is from psychologist Rick Hansen, who suggests that when we take the time to notice and savor the joys in our lives, it can help to build a brain that over time becomes more familiar with the positive things in life and thus more resilient. So fill yourself up by being fully present to those joys. I, for example, savor the heck out of my morning coffee. I try to remember to bring my full presence to my cuddles with my children, especially in these days when we don't really get to touch anybody much. So here it is. When you feel yourself getting snappy and on edge, when you're feeling exhausted and unfocused, instead of being hard on yourself, treat these as signs that you are becoming depleted and you need to recharge. And do the counterintuitive. Focus on yourself. Self-care is not selfish. It protects your ability to care for others. Many people tend to think of well-being as a zero-sum game, like your care either goes to them or to you. But when you focus on your own well-being, what you do is you end up having more inner resources that you can use towards the well-being of others. And that's the truth of it. So I'm almost at the end, and I promised a little tool that I have. And here it is. I'm going to leave you with this note that I have on my bathroom door. It says, "My time alone is for everybody's safety." And this has given me many moments of sanity while being in the house with my kids during this pandemic. So I invite you to put it on your bathroom door, any other door in your house, just have it in lots of places. Yeah, so that's the end of my talk. If you'd like to connect with me, my Twitter is at Angela S.Y. Low. I'll put it in the chat. And I'd love to know how you're doing. And I'll also put all these points and some additional resources on an article that I'll post a link to through the Dalai Lama Center and through my Twitter feed. Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce our next panelist, and that is Dr. Dzung Vo. Dr. Dzung Vo is also a friend of the Dalai Lama Center. He's been featured in our Heart Mind conferences. And I think we're just going to put up a slide about Dr. Vo here. Here we go. So Dr. Vo is the founding director at BC Children's Center for Mindfulness. He's head division of adolescent health and medicine, department of pediatrics. And I'm very excited that he was able to join us here today, Dr. Vo. I know we're in for a real treat. And I understand we're going to have a chance to practice some of the strategies and some of the practices that you will tell us about. So here's Dr. Vo.
Hi, thanks, Kareen, and to the Dalai Lama Center. It's really lovely to be here with you all. And I'm going to share a little bit about how, and I'm just going to keep, okay. I'm going to share a little bit about how we can help our young people through these storms. And my main message is actually repeating what Angela said, which is starting with ourselves. Because as caregivers, as an adults, if we can care for ourselves first, that's going to give our young people the best chance. Can we show the slide, please? So right now, it might feel like we're going through a stormy time. There's the internal storms, our stress, our anxiety, our worries, our uncertainty. Certainly, this is also influenced by the external storms. There's COVID, there's racism, there's many deep societal problems, and there's the pandemic and our restrictions with the pandemic. So all of these things are coming together. My teacher in mindfulness is Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a friend of the Dalai Lama personally. And he said that during the Vietnamese boat people refugee crisis in the 1970s and 80s, when Vietnamese people were fleeing Vietnam, they were in danger of being overwhelmed by storms and by pirates. He said, when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. it showed the way for everyone to survive. So we can ride the waves of the storm. Our calm and compassion will help us to do that. And each of you here are capable of that. Each of you has the capacity within yourself. And mindfulness can help us to practice and know this strength. We can stop the slide now, please. So John Kabat-Zinn is the one of the people who really brought mindfulness to the West in medicine and healthcare and education. And one of my favorite quotes of his is, "You can't fight the waves, you can learn to surf." And mindfulness helps us to surf those waves one wave at a time, rather than getting caught up in the immensity of the ocean. What's going to happen next? How long is the pandemic? What's going to happen if my kids go to school? What's going to happen if my kids don't go to school? How are we going to solve racism? You know, all of these things are enormous. But if we can ride the waves one moment at a time, then we can be at our best in every moment. And I'll offer my definition of mindfulness. It was modified by from John Kabat-Zinn's definition. My definition is mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and with unconditional love. And for me, unconditional love is an essential element of mindfulness to be healing. And unconditional love means that we treat each moment with kindness, with compassion, whether it's an easy moment or whether it's a difficult moment. And we do that both for ourselves, inner compassion, as well as for those we care about, outer compassion. And we do that also for the entire world because we know the whole world is suffering. For me right now, the most helpful practices are heart practices. These are practices which cultivate my kindness and compassion both for myself and for other people. Because there's so much pain in the world, and certainly I'm experiencing that just as I know many of you are as well. I remind myself that the heart pumps blood to itself first before it pumps blood to anyone else. The good news is that young people can learn mindfulness and self-compassion as well. And Angela did a wonderful job about describing what are the essential elements of self-compassion. So I'm going to offer how we can share that with our young people. The first element of self-compassion being just awareness that the emotion is here. So when we're with someone we love, a young person, and they're experiencing anger, sadness, stress, or worry, we can just name that. We can say, I can see that anger is here. I can see that you're experiencing sadness. I can see that you're experiencing worry. I can see that you're experiencing some depression right now. So simply naming it, being aware of it, and being present with it. I'm here for you. You matter. I love you no matter what. And I will be here with you. So that's mindfulness, being present, being aware. The second element being common humanity. So saying, I know that you're experiencing sadness and I'm experiencing it too. And so is your brother, your sister, so is your best friend. We are in this together. We may not be all in the same boat together because we all have different resources, different privileges, different experiences, but we are all in the same storm together. And experiencing anger or sadness right now means that you're human. The third element is kindness. So we can teach young people how to become their own best friend. We can ask them something like, if your best friend was here, and you can name them, if Johnny was here, if Susan was here, and they were experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing right now, what would you tell them? What would you say to them? And then can you practice saying that to yourself? And so we can teach young people those three elements. I'm going to offer a practice now. This is a very old practice. It's called loving kindness meditation. And I'm going to offer a version of it that comes out of the Mindful Self-Compassion program by Kristen Neff and Chris Kermer, and the adaptation by Karen Bluth. So I'm going to invite everyone to find a comfortable position wherever you are. It could be sitting, it could be standing, it could be lying down. You can have your eyes open, you can have your eyes closed. I'm going to invite one sound of this bell. This bell is an invitation from our friend to just be here right now. So you can imagine that your best friend is here when you hear the bell, and the bell is just saying, hey, be here right now. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. Being here just as you are is good enough. There's nothing to prove. Connecting with our breathing. Knowing what it feels like to breathe. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In, out. And now bringing to mind the image of someone who you have warm feelings for, who it's easy to feel connected to. So this may be your child, but maybe it won't be. Maybe it will be a pet, a friend, a partner, an ocean, a river, or a mountain. But bringing this being to mind who you feel easily connected to, you feel warm with. Seeing them in your mind's eye. And inviting a wish of kindness. Inviting this intention. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you be at ease with any pain. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you be at ease with any pain. And just inviting that intention without forcing anything, simply asking if the heart is able to open right now. Not expecting anything, not forcing anything, just inviting, just noticing. And then bringing to mind the image of the two of you together, your beloved person or being and yourself next to each other, maybe holding hands, and inviting that same wish. May we be well together. May we be at peace. May we be at ease with any pain. May we be well. May we be at peace. May we be at ease with any pain. And just noticing what happens, breathing in and out, inviting the heart to open. Without forcing anything, just being curious. And finally, bringing the picture to mind of yourself, letting the image of the beloved one fade away. Holding your own image in your mind, considering that you deserve to be loved just as much as you love this being. You deserve it just as much, no more, no less. And offering the same wish to yourself. May I be well. May I be at peace. May I be at ease with any pain. I'm breathing with that. We hear one sound of the bell to end. Opening your eyes if they were closed. Bringing your attention back to our virtual room, our virtual community. I'm going to end by sharing two resources, and I think the Dalai Lama Center can share these as well. One is the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook for Teens by my friend Kareen Hudson. The other is my book, The Mindful Teen. So both of these have some resources to teach mindfulness and self-compassion to teenagers. And my last practice I'm going to offer you, you can type it in the chat box. It's called Not Canceled. And you can make it a hashtag, Not Canceled. And you can do this with your family. What has not been canceled today? So when you sit around at the dinner table, you can acknowledge all the things that have been canceled, school, sports, graduations, parties. You can acknowledge the grief of that, but then you can also share what has not been canceled. And you can do that on social media. So for myself, the sunshine, summertime, and walks in my morning neighborhood with my dog have not been canceled. So I invite you to also share what has not been canceled. And I'll end now. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Vo. I'm just enjoying some of the contributions from our viewers around that, and there's some amazing things that haven't been canceled. So that's a really lovely way of reframing what is within our control at a time where maybe it feels that some things aren't. And really, thank you so much for that practice. I know that for me, that provided a really great opportunity to ground in the here and now, despite of the busy morning or despite of the hectic afternoon that's about to happen. One of the things that I'm wondering if you could comment on is that during this time of change and uncertainty, not only here but globally, what do you think our kids need the most from us as adults? What is that ingredient, or what is that practice or thing that we can do that could have the greatest influence in fostering their well-being?
The biggest gift that we can give any loved one is our true presence. I learned this from Thich Nhat Hanh. We don't need to say much. We don't have to do much. We just really need to be there for them, fully present in the moment, with that unconditional love, with that open-heartedness. If we do that, our children will remember that. They won't remember what we said. They won't remember what we did. There's a lovely Maya Angelou quote that says something very similar, but they'll remember that we were there for them.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our third and final panelist for this morning's webinar, and that is Holly Vivier. Holly is also a consultant with the Dalai Lama Center and is currently working with us on a project in Northern British Columbia. Holly is the district resource teacher for social emotional learning at the Vancouver School Board, and I know that she has some real wonderful nuggets of tips and strategies to share with us in terms of what you can expect at the school district level, the ways that they're supporting students and families through this slow transition back into school, as well as ways that parents and caregivers, adults can help children at the home level or at the school to classroom level, early childhood, etc. So I know that Holly has some wonderful suggestions for us up ahead. So Holly?
Hello, everybody. First of all, apologies. Somebody has started pressure washing the building right outside of the office that I'm in, so I apologize if there's a little bit of background noise. I really would love to just acknowledge and show gratitude for Dr. Vo and Angela's conversation today, because a lot of the things that I really want to talk about today really rest on that foundation that they've set. So I'm just really, have a lot of gratitude and very just taken and just really, I feel really fulfilled by the stuff that they've talked about today. And so I'm definitely ready for my slides as well. And so the first thing, and sort of to mimic what we've been talking about already, is to really have that conversation about the self-awareness piece. So, feelings are what we would call contagious. And, it's really important as parents, as we're sort of returning to school, to make sure that some of the worries and some of that we're not inadvertently passing those on to our kids. And kids are really, really sensitive. And I found this in the classroom as a teacher, but also in my work with teachers as well, that, sometimes we give different, oh, there we are. There it is. So, but sometimes we can inadvertently pass things on through our verbal or even our nonverbal cues to let the kids sort of might know that we're not feeling in our best way. And so the strategy that I really recommend, and, Angela's really touched on this, and so has Dr. Vo, is that idea of modeling calm and modeling optimism. And so in order to do that, it's really, really important that we really are sort of understanding where we're at and really providing ourselves with that self-care. And I think that's a really good theme throughout this day, is that we are really, truly being mindful of our own wellness and our own, inner selves, and how are we in checking in with ourselves. And we're able to do that more easily, and we're able to support our kids more easily when we are in that good place ourselves. So just to sort of move on, we'll go to the next slide. What I'd really like to recommend is, these are some of the strategies that we have for easing that transition back to the classroom. So here in Vancouver, we actually went back to the classroom starting last Monday. And so far, the reports have been quite positive. We're hearing lots of kids happy to be reconnecting with friends, and kids really happy to be, seeing their teachers again, and just sort of having that social connection that they've not really had since the middle of March, if you will. But there are some kids that really are having a few worries, or maybe having a few concerns about, and feeling a bit of anxiety about going in. And so what we do in schools is we often get people, and when I work with teachers, I often make recommendations around rephrasing, reassuring, and reframing. And so these are really great strategies, because not only are they really helpful, but they also will sort of mimic and mirror what's happening at school. And if what's happening at school is what's happening at home, that can be really, really helpful. So the first thing I really sort of do with kids in my sort of special ed background, but also with my own son, I have an 18-year-old. So I've sort of gone through all of the, kindergarten to grade 12 kind of stuff. And we're dealing with different things right now. He's had to, he's really plays a lot of rugby. And so he's missing out on his final year of rugby and provincials and things like that. He's very, very disappointed about that. So we've sort of been having those different conversations. He's maybe not necessarily sad about not graduating and walking across the stage. That's a bit more on myself. But, helping Haya to sort of rephrase. So really what we want to do is, when our kids are telling us how they're feeling, or they're showing us that they've got some, anxiety or stress around returning back to school, we really want to be using language to acknowledge that our kids have been heard. And so what we're doing is we're active listening, and we're actually having a opportunity to really rephrase back to kids what they're saying. And really, we want to know that the kids really need to know that their thoughts and their feelings are valid, and that they're normal. And so if we're able to validate those feelings, and we're able to let them know that what they're feeling is okay and it's normal, that's really good. But also that we're repeating back to them what they're saying to us. So they're really being heard. And being heard, whether you're an adult, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a child, that's really important to people. The next thing I would really recommend working on with kids is to sort of to reassure. And that's really to help kids to understand that school is a safe place. Our kids really want to know that they are going to be taken care of. And again, it's okay to have questions. And really, if they have a question, actually probably other kids are having that question too. And so when we reassure kids, we don't necessarily want to tell them, don't worry, everything is fine, because that doesn't necessarily address the concern. And so what we really want to do is to, give kids ways to not only know that things are going okay, and you can tell them what's happening at school and what you're going to do at home, but also we can also provide them sort of ways to cope throughout the day. And so the big piece that's really helpful is to help your child to develop some sort of positive thought reminder. And really what that is just a small phrase or an image that they can use to reassure themselves as they feel anxious throughout the day. So you can take a little image of something that they find really calming. Maybe it's a picture, if they love nature, then maybe it's a picture of a tree, or maybe it's a happy face, or whatever that little thing is that helps them just to remember what that positive sort of mindset is. So that can be really helpful. And if they're worried that they're going to forget it, sometimes you can even print it out or write it down, and they can sort of carry it around. And it's almost like this comforting visual physical reminder that yes, they are okay, that there are people there that care about them. And so that can be really helpful as well. And then another sort of strategy that you can use is to provide them something to look forward to at the end of the day. And so, as we've sort of gone through, and I'm sure a lot of you have sort of noticed that lack of structure and that lack of schedule has been a little bit stressful. I know even for myself, having a teenager around the house, when he's not in school, there's a lot more sleeping in, there's a bit more staying out later. And I feel like that schedule has sort of been a little bit upturned. And so even with our kids who are a lot younger, that lack of schedule can be really hard. And so, even though they're returning back to school and there's that piece at school where they're returning to that structure, it's really important to keep that structure going throughout the day. And so what's really helpful is to sort of provide them at the very beginning of the day to sort of have something to look forward to at the end of the day. So it can become just a relaxed activity. After school, we're going to go for a walk, or after school, we're going to go spend some time at the park, or after school, we'll get a chance to sit and read a book. Just something that they know will happen at the end of the day. And just so they have sort of an end goal of the day, and that they know what's going to sort of bring that day back and close the circle. And then the other thing is, in that morning, also really providing an opportunity to just engage in some positive self-talk, and set your child up for success. And, ask them, what are you looking forward to? What are you, what do you think is going to happen today? And just really sort of setting them in that positive space so they can walk into school and feel, excited to be there. And then, and sort of after the evening, the other thing too is to sort of re-engage with the positive things that happened at the end of the day, and just sort of help kids to debrief at the end of the day. So one great strategy we call roses and thorns, and that strategy is really helpful. It's a nice little, what we sort of would call like a dinner table conversation, and really asking kids to reflect back on the day and think about what are some of the really fabulous things that happened. So what are the roses pieces of, the day? So it might have been playing with a good friend, or for some kids, it might be, getting to go back and play with that one thing, that one toy at Centers that they don't have at home. So maybe the Connects, or, the marbles, or whatever it is. But just, really getting them to reflect on what were the good things that happened. Because when they can take forward what were the good things that happened, it gives them some of that looking forward to tomorrow and building that excitement to sort of just to look forward to what's coming next. And, and the other thing too is letting kids know in this reassuring piece is that, feelings are ephemeral, meaning feelings don't last forever. And we can work through them, and that, but it's okay to have those feelings. And, the roses and thorns thing actually is something that, my parents used back in, the 80s, the early 90s even. What did you learn at school today? What was good? What was not so good? And so the thorns, of course, are those things that they struggled through. And, the roses and thorns is a great time to sort of engage with kids in that with humor, and just sort of get a chance to sort of look at the day and what happened. But, also talking through the thorns. And again, that's sort of where we're moving into our next sort of strategy of reframing. And so, when we talk about the thorns, there are those can be the struggles of the day. My friend didn't come to school today, or, we didn't get to play in that playground at recess because of social distancing. And there is that little piece too, right, of having that conversation of returning to school. It looks different, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a positive experience. So just really thinking about that. So that thorns piece of that social distancing, that doesn't mean that our kids have to be socially disconnected. And so helping them to sort of figure out strategies and figure out ways to connect with kids and ways to play with kids. And sometimes we have to help kids almost develop like a play plan. So what does it look like when you play social distance wise? What is that? Like, what does that look like? And, this is not all on you as parents. I also want to let you know that schools and teachers are really coming up with really great innovative ways of helping kids to interact and engage with each other while still maintaining that social distancing piece. And so we'll move on to the next sort of case, which is the reframing. Oh, we can go back. Sorry, I'm not quite finished with the slide. No worries. And so really in reframing, we're really just wanting to, when, if you do have a sense where your child is excessively seeking reassurance, turn to reframing and problem solving, always with the goal that it's okay and it's normal to have worries sometimes. Try not to get stuck in the what ifs. What if my friend is not there? What if what if the teacher is, what if it's not my teacher? What if? That can get into a bit of a cycle. But I think what can be really helpful is to have conversations that actually engage in your child's strengths. So when they talk about something that is a what if, what I would do is say, that sounds like a challenge. So for example, what if my friend doesn't come to school next week? So what we might do, instead of saying, no, don't worry about it, your friend will be there, because we frankly don't know that whether that's true or not. What we can do is say, I'm sure that there's lots of other kids. Who else in your classroom do you like playing with? And getting them to sort of problem solve and almost pre-plan some strategies that they're going to use in the next day. And then really beginning, and when we reframe, we begin the day and we end the day with hope and resilience. And really, really reframing and really encouraging students to think about and really recognize their own problem solving abilities. And this is something that we're doing at school too. And so just to think about that. Great, and we'll just move to the next slide. And so just to sort of let you know what's happening in schools here at the Vancouver School Board, teachers are really embedding SEL into their practice. And so there is this piece of focusing on relationships and focusing on connection. And if you're a Vancouver parent and your kids are going back to school, you'll notice that there's probably not a ton of real, classic academics happening in the classrooms right now. Really, this time in June is just to bring kids back in and to really, increase those feelings of belonging, increase that connection, and really develop those relationships again, and just get them to really understand that yes, school is not necessarily the same, but I think that school right now is a time for you to come back and know that you belong and know that it's a safe place. And really, I think what this time is really important for and valuable for is to decrease that anxiety as you go into summer, so you kind of know what to expect when you come back in September. The VSB at the moment is really providing a lot of resources for teachers to assist them with students who have a range of emotions. And so that includes our students with special needs. So our students who are in our, our special needs programs, but also our students who might just, have that extra bit of anxiety, our students who might be really, struggling from a lack of schedule. And so we provided a lot of strategies to our teachers just to really get kids back into the swing of school. And really, even as the resources that we're providing really are SEL and relationship based. And so we're hoping that parents can support that by really just talking through the relationships and just really pushing in this month of just that connecting back to school and being a part of that school community. And then finally, if you're interested, the VSB website, we have a continuity for learning resources and tips for parents. And so I've provided Adrian, our moderator, a link, and so we can put that up, and I can also put it up in the chat. All right, so I'm just going to go into my takeaway exercise for you guys. So that will be my next slide. And really, this is something that works for me. And this is something that you can do while you're in the grocery store, something you can do while you're outside, something you can do after you drop off your kids, but it's also something you can engage with your kids. I call it finding the green. And finding the green is a really wonderful way to reconnect with the natural world. And, the natural world takes us outside of the need to, it just takes us out of that stressful environment and takes us away from the triggers or the sort of environment that might be causing us stress. You can go outside and go for a walk, or, if you're like me, you might have a special sit spot in nature that you find really, that you're drawn to, and that's a great place to go do this kind of work. But, as humans, we can actually see more shades of green than any other color in the spectrum. And so what I like to do is I just like to mindfully observe, whether I'm in the neighborhood, whether I'm just, in the mountains hiking, I really like to look for all the different shades of green I can find, and just really mindfully observe and mindfully look, at nature, and just really allow that beautiful, calming green to sort of settle in. And you can do this, like I said, after you pick your child up from school, or even back, as you're walking to school. Really great opportunity just to sort of calm and recenter the mind. And it's just something that's very, very helpful. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Holly. I'm so appreciative of all the really tangible strategies and resources that you've shared. I know that they're going to be super meaningful and helpful for families everywhere. I'm just noticing the time. We have about 2 minutes left in our webinar today. And I think that most of the questions there haven't been that many questions, but they've been covered one way or the other. What I'd like to do is just show you ways that you can keep in touch or stay in touch with our center. We have a slide with our social media channels. We're very active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you and your ideas and suggestions for perhaps future webinars. We also have a newsletter that we would love for you to sign up for. You can do that by going to either of our websites. In the next slide, I think both websites are noticed or named. There's the DalaiLamaCenter.org and there's HeartMindOnline.org. Please sign up for the newsletter. You'll be the first to know about our upcoming conferences, workshops, and webinars. And before we wrap up and say goodbye, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the panelists so much for their time and sharing. Thank you for participating in our first live webinar. So many of you have stayed with us the whole hour. We're so grateful for that. I'd like to thank the Dalai Lama Center staff behind the scenes who made this webinar possible, and our collaborating support people who are the SCLBC group and the BC Coalition or School-Centered Mental Health Coalition, who have been very supportive of this webinar. So with that, I would like to wish you a happy, great rest of the day, and really hope to see you again soon in the near future. Thank you.